Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Scotland and we're going to continue on with this little mini series of reviews that I've entitled Crazy Beers for 10 Years, of course to celebrate the channel's 10th anniversary. Now for this review we are going to go to another brewery that I've never tried anything from before. These guys are a very new addition to the Scottish beer scene, but they've had a lot of positive press. I've heard very good things about their beers, and I've been wanting to get one of their beers reviewed on the channel for quite some time, but it's only now that I've been able to make that happen. So you'll see a few reviews from these guys coming up over the next few videos. But the beer we're going to have a look at today is one of the bigger beers that they do. It's a style that I very much enjoy, and it has a few twists to it that I haven't had within this style category. In fact, one I might have had, the second one I definitely haven't had in this style bracket. And that was one of the main reasons that this beer caught my eye, and I thought, you know, we have to have one of these. So needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then we are going to head to the beautiful city of Inverness, the Highland capital here in Scotland, and we're going to have a look then at my first beer from Dog Falls Brewing Company. So this particular beer is called Quercus 22. It comes in at 10.5% ABV, and this one is a barley wine aged in white wine and tequila barrels. So yeah, I've had one or two white wine barrel-aged barley wines before, if memory serves me correctly. Not too many though, but I've never had one that's been aged in tequila barrels, and I have to admit I do hate tequila, but this one just kind of caught my curiosity, and it seems to be very highly rated. I should also point out that this beer is considered a collaboration with Jack Sport, who designed the artwork on this one. He is a landscape artist and illustrator, from what I understand. It tells you about that on the back of the can. I have to say, his artwork is pretty damn nice, in fact. But yeah, an 10.5% sorry, white wine and tequila barley-aged barley wine from Dog Falls Brewing Company in Inverness. This is going to be my first taste of one of their beers. So let's crack on with this one and see what it's all about. So, as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I'll do in the future from Dog Falls Brewing Company, and we will do a few more of their reviews of their core beers in upcoming videos, so keep your eyes peeled for those. But there's all the usual social media down there if you want to see more reviews. Do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Scottish playlist along with a number of other things, and we will of course add to that as time goes on. And you can check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are many interesting things on the channel these days. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you about Dog Falls Brewing Company for the first time. So Dog Falls, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Inverness in the Scottish Highlands, the Highland capital, very pretty city, and the company was founded back in 2019 by husband and wife team Robert and Louise Masson. So Robert comes from an engineering background and worked in the oil industry for a number of years, but he was also a huge fan of mountain biking, and from what I understand he actually suffered quite a bad injury from this, and this is what pushed him to pursue his home brewing hobby a little bit more. Today he takes care of the brewing side of things, but Louise takes care of the admin side of the business, and I believe she comes from a background in project management, but I couldn't find that out for sure. But they released their first beers at the Inverness Farmers Market in the lead up to Christmas 2019, and they were originally producing beer in their garage in Scanieport, which was only a very small 25 square metre thing, but this allowed them to produce around 20,000 litres of beer per year. They had 3 fermenters in there and a small brew kit, from what I understand. But in late 2022 they relocated to a new unit on Lotland Place to the north of Inverness city centre, and they brewed their first batch in this new brewery in December of that year. But the new site saw them add 3 new 1500 litre fermenters, and they're planning to produce 1000 to 1500 litres of beer per week. I don't know if they're doing that already, but they have scaled up the production quite considerably. But as of August 2023, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 15 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and they've got a core range of 9 different beers, which is quite varied actually, I have to say, and you'll see a few of those appear on the channel over the next little while, and they will no doubt continue to add to that as time goes on. So yeah, I would say it's actually quite hard to get a hold of some of the Dog Falls stuff. I came across a can of their Kolsch in a local shop along in Bridge of Allen, and I saw it and just bought it straight away because I wanted to cover this brewery on the channel. But other than that, I've struggled to get a hold of their stuff. I know that the Wee Beer Shop in Glasgow can get them sometimes, but yeah, you are probably going to have to go closer to Inverness to get a hold of the Dog Falls stuff at the moment, as of August 2023, of course. But that will no doubt change as time goes on and their name gets out there a little bit more. But they've won a good number of awards, and like I said, quite a few people have been commenting on the Scottish videos and telling me that I need to have a little look at some of the Dog Falls stuff. So yeah, here we are, our first review from these guys. But yeah, that's everything I can really tell you about them for the moment. If you want to learn more, you can check out the brewery website. Follow them on social media as well. That will keep you a little bit more up to date, I think, than the website will. But you can, of course, check out the Untappd page and have a look at the different beers that they've done as well, because that seems to be pretty up to date. But yeah, let's go on then and actually have a little look at this beer itself. So, as I said to you earlier, this one is aged in tequila and white wine barrels. It doesn't say for how long though, and it's brewed using a champagne yeast and hopped with Nelson Sauvin. Nelson Sauvin, of course, is a hop variety from New Zealand, quite a classic one, 16% alpha acid. It gives you this lovely kind of white wine grapey, gooseberry type flavour. It's just lovely. So yeah, I've seen this used in barley wines a couple of times, but not overly much. But when I think about the fact that this one's aged in white wine barrels and tequila barrels, I think it could work pretty well. The beer itself does have quite a good rating according to Untappd. I think it was like a 4.17 that it had, which is pretty good for a barley wine, I have to say. So yeah, this should be interesting. I'll just let you have a wee look at the artwork on this one before we open it up. There you can see, I think that's an eagle, though I'm not an ornithologist, so do correct me on that in the comment section below if I am wrong. I'm not big on my birds, I have to say. But yeah, there you can see the Dog Falls brewery symbol. I'm not sure how well that's showing up because the camera, of course, hates shiny things. And you can see there is Jack Sports symbol there too, which is kind of interesting. Plain gold top on the can there, but it goes together quite nicely with the actual artwork of the beer too. I'll need to remember to put Jack Sports link in the description below for you as well. But yeah, let's get this guy out into the glass and see what it's all about. I'm very, very curious about this beer, and as I say, the tequila barrel aging is what really kind of caught my eye with this one. And with the fact that, you know, when I see that the name is Quercus 22, I'm guessing that they probably plan to release another vintage of this one a little bit later on, or rebrew it next year. We'll just need to see. But yeah, let's get it out into the glass and see what it's all about. I think we've maybe got about 75% of the beer out into the glass at the moment, and that will be enough time to take a look at it and see what it's all about. So yeah, you can see that it's poured really nicely. It actually looks very similar to you know, it actually looks a little bit more like a double IPA or something like that. So yeah, before the head disappears though, you can say safely that this beer poured with about 1/4 to 1/3 finger of a frothy, I would say kind of cream coloured head. If I put the beer right up to the camera, you can see it does have 1 or 2 little bumps to it, but it is actually a fairly foamy head on this one. But like I say, you can see that the colour in this one is pretty damn bright. It's actually almost got a little bit like it looks a little bit almost like a hazy pale ale or something like that. It's kind of along these lines. So yeah, definitely not as dark as I would have expected from a barley wine. I've seen wheat wines that have been around this colour, but yeah, you don't see too many barley wines that are quite as light as this. But remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. 1, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. 2, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. Any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour too. And when it comes to kind of brown beers like barley wines, it is possible for that to happen. But yeah, I think in the case of barley wines, because they tend to have longer wort boils and stuff, it usually is the type of malts and the length of that wort boil that's going to play a role in things. So yeah, this is definitely one of the lighter coloured barley wines that I've come across in quite some time. And if I, if I rub some of the condensation away, you can see the beer does have a little bit of a kind of natural hazy sort of thing going on to it as well, which is kind of expected in most craft beers these days, you know, because you don't really want to filter these, to be quite honest. It gives you a little bit more flavour if you don't. But yeah, as I say, just really surprised at how light this one is in colour. But it's not unheard of. It is just a little bit more unusual. Not too much in the way of visible carbonation with this one. Just one or two bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass, and a few little ones heading up toward the surface there. But it looks nice. It does look very nice, this one. So let's have a wee look at the aroma of this beer then, and just see what it's all about. I'm really curious about this beer, in fact. So let's do this. That's something, I have to say. It's actually very light and very kind of mild in terms of its aroma, but you can smell the barrels, you can smell that white wine vinous character on the top of your nose, and you can also smell the kind of herbally thing of the tequila. Like I said, I am not a fan at all of tequila, gold or white. I just do not see the attraction to it, I have to say that. But we'll give the barley wine, we'll give the beer the benefit of the doubt for the moment. But I have to say, the aroma, if I sugar this one up, it's actually quite difficult to get the aroma out of this one. I think this is going to be one of these beers where we're going to get a lot more out of the flavour than we will out of the aroma. But yeah, it maybe just needs a bit of time to kind of air out and open up, and that's one of the reasons why I like doing reviews that are slightly longer. Maybe should make some shorts as well, right enough. But yeah, for me, the backbone of this beer, you do get that lovely, smooth, kind of oaky character coming out of this one. And you can smell the slightly drier European oak in there from the white wine barrels. The white winey notes that come out of this one are quite bright and quite floral and grassy in a sense. Yeah, quite a citrusy leaning wine there, but yeah, I do get quite a little bit of vanilla mixing in with all of that too. So yeah, a little bit of vanilla, lovely little bit of, as I say, a lovely little bit of kind of, yeah, lovely little bit of vanilla, lovely little bit of kind of, like, it's almost got a very slightly nutty character to it as well. You can certainly smell the tequila coming out of this one too, and I have to say, like, tequila is not something that I enjoy all that much. I've repeated that a few times. But you can smell the white wine and the tequila mixed in there, and it gives you this almost like quite citrusy and floral type thing, but then this almost herbally leafy type note too. But yeah, the woody character that's in there, very smooth. You've got a little bit of kind of, a kind of brown sugary Werther's Original butter candy sort of thing going on in this one too. And yeah, the way that goes together is also really quite interesting. So yeah, for me, the way that goes together is really something else. But I have to say, on top of that, I'm not getting too much in the way of a barley wine note coming out of this. I'm trying to pick up the aroma, but it's kind of just, it seems like it's kind of hiding a little bit. So that is quite unusual, I have to say. So for me, I get a little bit of bread crust, like fresh white bread crust. I get a little bit of kind of wholemeal brown bread and a wee bit of white brown bread, but there's a lot of sweet caramel. There is a little bit of Werther's Original butter candy butterscotch too, and also a good little bit of a McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing too. So yeah, for me, it's just it's just really quite interesting how it goes together. It really is very mild, this beer. in terms of its aroma, actually. On the hoppy side of things, because remember, the Barleywine is essentially the big brother of the double IPA. If we're talking technicalities, you know, triple and quadruple IPAs take the malt to hop ratio of a double IPA and just put in more malt, and thus you've got more hops as well. And the same with the quadruple. But the Barleywine has a different hop to malt ratio. You've got pale ales, IPAs, double IPAs, and Barleywines are all related to each other that way through that slight difference in hop to malt ratio. But yeah, the Barleywine for me, with this one, it's got quite a wet, freshly cut grass green component to it. A little bit of a floral character as well. A wee touch of earthy herbal sort of thing. But yeah, quite a wet, leafy, sort of grassy type character coming out of it. There's not too much to report on that green component actually, but remember, the longer that you leave a Barleywine, the more the hoppy character is going to drop out of it. This one, of course, is a 2022 release. So yeah, quite a bit of the hoppy character will have dropped out of it already, in fairness. But yeah, the aroma in that sense is quite nice. So yeah, not too much of a green component. On the fruity side of things, like I say, you get quite a little bit of Inverness character out of this one. So you have, you know, the white wine, the white green grapey notes coming out of the beer. But beyond that, you have got a little bit of the gooseberry from the Nelson Sauvin. There's a little bit of the, you know, there's maybe a little bit of like oily pear, fresh green apple coming out of it too. But there really isn't that much to report. This is quite hard for me to pick up the aroma in this one, because it is so kind of mild-mannered. Even as I let it warm up a little bit, it's not changing all that much, to be honest with you. Even if I put, let's see what happens if I put the whole thing. Yeah, let's see what happens if I put the whole thing in the glass and just get it a bit physically closer to the nose. Yeah, even if I put my nose right into this thing, I just get a little bit more of the wood, like a little bit more butter candy, a little bit more butterscotchy sort of stuff. But yeah, it's just a very mild-mannered beer in terms of its aroma. So yeah, as I always say, take a wee bit of time to just kind of ponder over the aroma of your beer before you get stuck into it. But I think it's about time that we crack into this one and see what it's all about. So yeah, this is the Quercus 2022 10.5% barley wine, aged in white wine and tequila barrels from Dog Falls Brewing Company in Inverness in the Scottish Highlands. My very first taste of a beer from these guys. Let's get stuck in and see what this one's all about. Slàinte, skål, cheers. This is from the aroma, the flavour of this beer just makes sense. It is a really very mild-mannered thing, this. It's like, if I was to taste this blind, I would struggle to know what this is. Yeah, I have to admit, I really would struggle to figure out what this beer was if I was doing it blindfolded. It's nice, don't get me wrong. It's a nice beer, this one, and the flavour combinations are really well done too. But it is just really very quirky and very unusual, this. If I try and compare this to other styles, for example, probably the closest style that I can think of with this beer would be something along the lines of like a, you know, a Maibock maybe. It reminds me a little bit of like a Maibock or a Hellerbock or Heller Doppelbock, something like that. That's what this beer really is akin to. But of course, those are lagers, and this is an ale. Yeah, this is really quirky and unusual. It is a nice beer. And everything kind of goes together really quite well, but it's just not, as I say, if you're thinking a I knew it was going to be quirky when I saw it was aged in white wine barrels and tequila barrels, but really not what I was expecting. I was expecting this one to be a little bit more. It's quite, when I think about the barley wine as a style, it's quite, it really is quite, the barley wine for me as a style is I always think of something a bit more kind of brown sugary and a bit more oily. Even if you think about the differences between the American barley wines, which are at the really oily and sweet end of the spectrum, and the English barley wines, which are a little bit more kind of toasty and things like this. This really, it is a very, very bready barley wine, this one. And like I say, the style that I can relate this most to would be like, it would be like a German Heller Doppelbock or a Maibock or something like this. The flavour profile is most akin to that. You might have a little bit of like an English paleo type flavour profile to this one, but obviously this beer is the big brother of the paleo. But it's interesting, I guess, and you can tell it's good quality. It's interesting and it's nice, but it's just very quirky and unusual. And you know, that's kind of what you want in these days. I've reviewed 3,800 odd beers. You want things that are a bit different and that are going to test your palate. And this beer certainly is doing that successfully. Let's just say that. So yeah, it really is interesting how all this pieces together. So let's just break the beer down and describe the flavour profile as we do it. So if you go to the middle third of your palate, then you've got a smooth woody backbone in there, and I don't know what kind of barrels and stuff they age tequila in, but you can certainly get, like, with this one you can taste that kind of slightly drier European oak in there. For me, American oak is a lot smoother. But yeah, the dry European oak is in there. It has a little bit of an almost kind of like funky layer on top of the wood, and it's got a little bit of spice too, which could be the tequila, but then above that you do certainly get a little layer of the kind of white wine and the sort of, you know, whenever you barrel age something you're going to get like a little bit of spirit or whatever. So yeah, you can certainly get a wee bit of that going on in this beer too. But yeah, at the same time, this beer, you get the wine, you can feel the sort of wine spirit coming out a little bit more into the aftertaste, and you also get the kind of drier woody characteristics coming out of this one too, which I think are really nice. I actually think it's very, very nice how that all kind of pieces together in this one. So yeah, for me, the way that all, let's say, the way that everything just kind of pieces together in this one is really interesting. But on top of that kind of barrel layer, if we can call it that, on top of the kind of white wine, I will say the white wine for me is actually, I was thinking it was going to be a bit more kind of floral and zesty actually, but for me it's, the white wine notes that you get with this are actually quite wet and juicy. But above that, the barley wine side of things for me, you get a lot of fresh white bread in there, sitting on top of that, like a fresh white bready bread crust in the base. Then you get a fluffy white bready layer, and above that you start to get some of the kind of brown sugary notes out of the beer. So yeah, you've got the woody, you've got the wood barrel, a little bit of the kind of winey sort of thing, and in the middle of those you've got a bit of the tequila spice, then fresh white bread crust, a fluffier but still dense white bread, and then above that you have a really nice, as I say, above that you get a very nice kind of, how would you say, just you get a little bit of a base of brown sugar. I can certainly tell you that this beer will not have had a very long wort boil. You can tell that right away with it. I should have said that earlier on, that the colour kind of gives it away with this one. This has not had a very long wort boil at all, otherwise it would be that kind of deeper, kind of that very deep, that kind of deeper mahogany, ambery type colour that you'd expect. But yeah, above the bread, you've got a lovely little bit of a kind of brown sugary character there. So you do have a little touch of a kind of slightly leathery butterscotchy character. Then above that, you have, above that you can feel a little circle in the middle of your palate, which gives you a little bit more of a, you know, above that layer there, you've got like a little circle there where it's a more oily butterscotch, butter candy sort of thing. Think Werther's Original. And then in the dead centre of your palate, you have a little bit of sweet caramel, but it's a little bit more kind of like a vanilla fudge that you get out of this one. And there's a wee bit of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity note that comes out of this beer. So, yeah, there's a wee bit of the brown sugar kind of lingers there into the aftertaste, but you can feel more and more of the kind of white winey notes pushing their way out of this beer the further on that you go with it, and I think that's I do think that's really nice with this one actually. So that gets a big thumbs up from me. Other than that, I don't know if there's really very much to say about the middle third of your palate in this beer. I think that covers it, to be honest. It's actually quite a simple beer, this one. In things, it's nice to drink. I do like this, but it just, as I say, not what I was expecting of a barley wine at all. But yeah, that's the middle third of your palate in this one. So let's go on to the back third of the palate then. As I've often said, the back third of your palate will give you similar flavours to the middle third, just at different kind of intensities. But do remember that general trend with your palate that's dry, that sweeter flavours will come out further forward and more dry and bitter flavours will come out a wee bit kind of further back. So on the the back of that, on the back third of your palate, the border region between these two, in fact, you've got a little bit of the kind of funky note in the base, then you get a little bit of the white bread sitting above that, but then the base of your back third of your palate is more along the lines of a kind of smooth, dry, woody type character, so you've got that in there. On top of that, you have a bit more of, you've got a little bit more of a kind of, above the woody character, you've got a little bit more of I'd say you've got the kind of spirit again there, but I think more of the tequila actually comes out on that back third of the palate. Then you have the kind of the bread crust there, which again feels a little bit drier, a little bit more kind of floury in a sense. Then you've got this big kind of light and airy layer of kind of dense white bread. There's maybe a little touch of wholemeal brown bread near the base, but yeah, you've got this big kind of dense but light and airy white bread there. And above all of that, you can feel some of the leathery kind of butterscotchy notes just creeping over the top of that, and then above everything else you've got some of the yeasty elements just kind of coming out of the beer. So yeah, the way the beer goes together in that particular regard is really quite nice, and that gets a big thumbs up from me. Let's just have a wee look at the yeasty character that's coming out of this one. So yeah, the yeasty side of this beer is quite this beer is quite interesting. I mean, you can feel this like little bit more dense. It's got a little bit of a kind of dense, kind of brown bready character to it, which is quite interesting. So yeah, a little bit of a more dense brown bready sort of thing. It's got a wee bit of a kind of woodhousey sort of funky character to it. And it's kind of wrapped, it's got like a bit of woodiness, a little bit of farmhousey grainy kind of things to it, and it's just wrapped in a little bit of honeycomb. But yeah, this beer has a lot of kind of funky sort of notes going on to it. The kind of funkiness you get out of these beers actually reminds me of what Epochal have done. If you told me it was a Scottish brewery and gave me this beer blindfolded, I'd probably think this was something from Epochal, to be honest with you, the more and more that I drink of this one. But yeah, the yeasty character just sits above the the kind of malty back third of your palate there, but definitely you can feel the back third of your palate, the flavour is taller, then as you move further forward into the middle third of your palate, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. But yeah, let's go on to the hoppy side of things with this one then. The green component is kind of what I expected from the aroma. It's not too prominent in this beer. Again, it's barrel aged, and the barley wine does have quite a little bit of hop to it. But yeah, in the back corners of the palate you do get a nice little bit of earthiness in there. As you move further forward it gets a little touch herbal, but as you push further forward toward the front corners of your palate it gets a little bit more floral, and round the front curve of your tongue it's a little bit lighter and grassy, and it's quite a wet green component overall, and the kind of grassiness that you get out of this one builds a good bridge with the kind of white wine characteristics of this beer. I think the white wine barrel is a bit dominant over the tequila barrel. The tequila barrel takes a bit more time to come out the further into the aftertaste that you go. But yeah, I think that covers the green component. Let's focus on that front third of your palate then, just to round off. So the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get a nice little bit of a kind of bready build-up in there. So yeah, you get that bready build-up in there. There's a little bit of a kind of funky, woody, bready sort of thing underneath, and then you do have that little bit of kind of white bready character sitting on top of it, which is really nice. But yeah, the base of that front third of your palate, it is absolutely, you know, the wood, and the wood is a little bit smoother there. It's almost like a more American oaky wood that you get in the base of that front third of your palate. There's a little bit of the kind of sweeter, winey character sitting on top of it, and then, pardon me, then on top of that you get a bit of the bread crust that I was talking about earlier, and the dense white bread, and you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. As you would expect from the Nelson Sauvin, you're getting just across that front third of your palate, it's a lot of gooseberry, it's a lot of white, you know, green sort of grapey characters there. There's maybe a little hint of like a fresh green apple, maybe a light little touch of pear or something like that. But yeah, this beer is giving you everything you'd expect of Nelson Sauvin. Very gooseberry, very white wine, green grapey sort of things. Yeah, that's a lot of what's going on in this beer. So, yeah, for me, yeah, the fruity side of things in this beer is really nice. I do like the way the white wine and the white wine, the green component, and the kind of gooseberry notes and things from the hops go together. It's one of these beers where everything just balances out really nicely. But like I say, this is it's a very quirky barley wine, this one. You do get more and more of the kind of tequila, herbally type character out of this the further you go into the aftertaste, and that's really quite interesting. But yeah, if I think about this beer in terms of style categories and stuff, it really is a little bit more, to me at least, it's a little bit more like a kind of Hellerbock or My Doppelbock or something like this. It really is quite similar to those, but at the same time it has a little bit of that funky epochal type note to it, which is kind of interesting. So yeah, really quirky beer. So I do like this, and it is, you can tell it's very, very well done, but it's just not what you would expect conventionally from a barley wine. But very interesting introduction to Dog Falls Brewing, I have to say. And if this is a kind of indicator of the quality of beers that they can do, I'm quite curious to try their core stuff actually and see what it's all about. But yeah, I think we can round off this review then with a wee look at the mouthfeel. So for me, mouthfeel wise, yeah, for me, mouthfeel wise, this beer is quite, it's certainly not the heaviest, pardon me, of barley wines that I've come across. I would say that this one is kind of top end of mid-bodied. The carbonation is quite smooth. It's got a little bit of an oily slickness to it and a wee bit of a smoother dryness. But yeah, the way this beer goes together in that sense is quite nice. It's a very, very light barley wine, for sure. As I say, it's very, very light bodied. You have to remember as well, when you barrel age something, you are going to lose a little bit of the mouthfeel out of it. So yeah, that also plays a role there. In terms of the IBU count in this beer, this is not going to blow the head off you in terms of bitterness at all. It has got quite a little bit of dryness to it, so we have to think about, you know, perceived bitterness and calculated bitterness in this case. I'd say that it probably isn't that high on the IBU count, but the dryness of the beer would maybe give you a bitterness rating of like 40 or 50 IBUs. I think that's probably quite reasonable with this one. But like we said, you've got the dryness of the woodiness and the malt base. You've got a little bit of a kind of more savoury, bready character in the middle. And you've got a wee bit of a dry sweetness on top of that. And then, yeah, you've got some nice fruity characters that go into the aftertaste. A little bit of the white wine, a little bit of the kind of gooseberry sort of things from the Nelson Sauvin. But yeah, the way this beer goes together, I think, is really quite interesting. I like beers at this point of the channel's history. I like beers that test my palate, and this one certainly has succeeded in doing so. The white wine and tequila barrel combination certainly does work, and if you like the sort of beers that Apocalypse are doing, these kind of funky, old school sour type, but they're not even really sour beers, they're more just kind of like farmhousey funk type beers, then this is one that I think you would quite enjoy as well. Certainly an unconventional barley wine, and but a very good quality beer. So yeah, I think that's everything we really need to say about this one, to be honest with you. This is the Quercus, or was the Quercus, a 10.5% white wine and tequila barrel-aged barley wine from Dog Falls Brewing Company in Inverness in the Scottish Highlands. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Dog Falls as well, and we will no doubt return to these guys again at some point in the very near future, because we do have 3 other core beers that I'm going to review on the channel over the next wee while, so keep your eyes peeled for those. But thank you for watching. Check out my social media, check out Dog Falls social media, and you will see these guys again on the channel at some point very, very soon. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Check out Quercus if you get the chance, and maybe they'll release a few other big heavy beers. I'd love to see them have a go at a Scotch ale, but I say that about every brewery. Slàinte, skål, and cheers just now.